The stars stretched endlessly, cold and silent. Among them, a small human spaceship drifted, alone, cutting through the darkness. Its metal hull reflected the faint glimmers of distant suns, and inside, the hum of engines was the only sound breaking the void. Captain Alara Miles, a young explorer, gripped the controls with a mixture of excitement and fear. She had trained for years for this mission, yet nothing could have prepared her for the emptiness of uncharted space. Alara had always been curious, driven by a hunger to discover what no human had seen before. Brave by nature but inexperienced in the vast stretches of space, she often relied on her instincts. Her ship, the Orion's Edge, was equipped with the latest sensors and communication arrays, but even they seemed small against the cosmic ocean surrounding her. She gazed at the starfield, noting constellations she didn't recognize, wondering what secrets lay beyond. Somewhere far, far beyond the borders of known space, something watched her. Massive, silent, the apex warrior, a legendary being of galactic lore, floated among the stars. Its form glowed faintly, an aura of power that seemed to bend the light around it. The apex was feared by the galaxy's most powerful governments and armies. Stories said it could destroy entire fleets without effort, yet it rarely interfered in mortal affairs. Tonight, however, the apex had noticed something unusual. A human, small and fragile, wandering into its domain. Alara adjusted the ship's trajectory, unaware that her every movement was being observed. Her heart raced at the thought of being alone, but curiosity propelled her forward. She activated the external scanners, trying to detect any signs of life, but the readings were strange. Signals, yes, but nothing she recognized. She frowned. Could this be a new star system, or something more dangerous? Her voice echoed in the cockpit, nervous yet firm. This is Captain Alara Miles of the Orion's Edge. We are entering unknown territory. If anyone is out there, we come in peace. She sent the message into the void, not knowing where it might reach, or if it would reach anyone at all. Far away, the apex warrior felt a ripple in the vastness. It was subtle at first, almost like the brushing of a feather against a stone. But then it became clear. A signal had crossed the infinite distances of space. The human had sent a message, and it was bold, unshielded, and raw. The apex's glowing form shifted, a faint hum vibrating through the void. It had not expected this. Most beings in its vicinity avoided direct contact, fearing its power. Yet here was a human, unaware, reaching out into the dark. Alara didn't notice the subtle vibrations around her. She scanned a nebula ahead, its swirling colors mesmerizing and alien. Her eyes widened at the beauty of it. She had seen pictures before, but the reality was beyond imagination. The nebula's gases danced in hues of violet and gold, forming shapes she couldn't describe. Incredible, she whispered. She reached to record it, eager to share this discovery with the world. But then the sensors flickered. A reading, massive and undefined, appeared at the edge of her scope. Her stomach tightened. The size alone was off the charts. She adjusted the focus, zooming in, but the readings were inconsistent. Sometimes the object seemed closer, sometimes farther away. Something huge was out there, watching. The apex warrior remained still, observing. This consciousness stretched across the void, analyzing the tiny ship. Humans were unpredictable, often reckless, yet somehow, they carried a strange spark. It was curiosity, it was bravery, and perhaps foolishness. The apex decided to move closer, cautiously, not yet revealing its full presence. Its glow dimmed, blending with the starlight, but its massive shadow drifted closer to the Orion's Edge. Inside the cockpit, Alara noticed a sudden shift in gravity readings. "That's impossible," she muttered, checking the instruments. The numbers were fluctuating wildly. Something enormous was nearby, she realized. Panic and exhilaration battled inside her chest. She had trained for emergencies, but never for this. Being so small, so fragile, under the gaze of a force she could barely comprehend. She tried to send another signal, a greeting, a warning, but the message faltered, cut off halfway. The transmission had triggered something. Something aware. Something ancient. Her heart pounded in rhythm with the alarms blaring in the cockpit. The Apex's presence was closer now, though she could not see it directly. She only felt it. A weight pressing in on her mind. A cold intensity that made her blood run faster. The stories had always said that if the Apex appeared, one could sense its approach before it was visible. Alara didn't know the stories. She only knew fear, tinged with fascination. The ship shuddered slightly, as though acknowledging the immense being drifting toward it. From the darkness, a colossal shadow stretched across the starfield. It moved slowly, deliberately, each shift a demonstration of its immense power. Its eyes, or lights that seemed like eyes, flickered faintly, observing, calculating. The Apex warrior had made its decision. Alara's hands shook as she gripped the controls. Every instinct screamed at her to run. Yet she found herself frozen, watching, mesmerized. The legends were true. She was seeing a being of unimaginable scale and might, a creature that the galaxy itself whispered about in fear. And yet, it moved with a grace that was almost serene. Seconds stretched into what felt like hours. The Orion's edge remained adrift, and the Apex continued its silent approach. The stars behind it seemed to bend, distorting under the weight of its presence. Alara could no longer deny it. This was no natural phenomenon, no asteroid field. This was alive, aware, and now focused entirely on her. And then, without a sound, the Apex stopped. Its form loomed in the darkness just beyond the reach of her sensors. Alara's breath caught in her throat. She could feel the magnitude of its power, the patience, the watchful intent. A single thought formed in her mind. She had reached the edge of known space, and beyond it waited something legendary. Something that could destroy entire civilizations if angered. Something that now regarded her with curiosity, or perhaps something else entirely. The silence stretched, broken only by the faint hum of the ship. And then, the Apex warrior moved again, closer, its massive form becoming undeniable, ominous, unstoppable. Alara realized she had no choice but to face it. The unknown had arrived. Alara's heart raced like a drumbeat echoing through the silent void. The Apex warrior loomed before her ship, a colossal figure of glowing energy and shadow. She could barely comprehend its size. The sensors were overwhelmed, unable to measure the distance or mass of the being. It was as if space itself bent around it. For a moment, Alara thought of turning back, of fleeing to the safety of known star systems. But her curiosity, stronger than her fear, anchored her in place. This was what she had trained for. This was discovery. And yet, the enormity of the moment pressed on her mind like a weight she could not lift. The Apex's glowing eyes, or whatever they truly were, focused on her. Slowly, deliberately, it extended an enormous appendage, something that seemed part arm, part energy, part shadow. It hovered, motionless, a silent question in the void. Alara felt a shiver run down her spine. Was it curious, threatening, or simply studying her, as if she were an insect caught in a light beam? She swallowed hard and activated the ship's communication system. I am Captain Alara Miles, she stammered, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. I come in peace. I mean no harm. For a moment there was no response, not even the faintest vibration in the ship. Then the Apex did something unexpected. A low hum filled the void, a sound that wasn't really sound, resonating deep within the hull of her ship. It was a form of communication, alien but intelligent, carried power, and yet, strangely, a sense of curiosity. Alara tried to record it. Every instinct screamed at her to retreat, but her hands moved on their own. She wanted to capture this, document this, understand it. She sent a calm signal back, hoping it would understand her intent. Slowly, the Apex shifted its massive form, moving slightly closer. Space around it rippled like water disturbed by a stone. The nebula behind it glowed brighter, reflecting the energy radiating from the being. Alara realized that the legends had not done it justice. No story, No recording, no description could capture this presence. Then, without warning, the apex reached toward the ship, not with violence, but with precision. Its movement was deliberate, testing, gentle despite its colossal size. The ship's shields flared as it came into contact, a soft vibration through the hull rather than destruction. Elara felt as if the being was probing her intentions, seeking to understand her without words. Her mind raced. Could it sense fear? Curiosity? Courage? She focused, holding her emotions steady, projecting the calm and honesty she hoped it could sense. The hum continued, growing more complex. Notes, patterns, pulses, like music, like thought, like speech beyond comprehension. Suddenly, alarms blared. The ship's proximity sensors detected an anomaly, another object moving in the distance. Elara squinted at the screen. A fleet? No, not a fleet she had ever seen. Metallic shapes, enormous and angular, approaching at high speed. The galaxy's political powers, the ones that feared the apex, were sending forces to investigate. Elara realized the danger. If they arrived, the apex could be provoked. The human fleet, armed and aggressive, could trigger a catastrophe. And she, small and alone, was the only one between the apex and the approaching threat. She acted instinctively. "Stay back," she whispered, not just to the apex, but to herself. She tried to send a warning signal to the fleet, but communications were jammed, scrambled by the apex's presence or some natural anomaly. She was alone, powerless to stop what was coming. The apex's glowing form shifted, almost imperceptibly. It seemed aware of the approaching threat too. Its hum deepened, resonating like a drumbeat in her chest. Elara felt a strange connection forming, as if the being could sense her fear, her intentions, her heartbeat. And perhaps it understood that she meant no harm. Time stretched, seconds feeling like hours. The fleet drew closer, their lights piercing the darkness like sharp blades. Elara could see their weapons, primed and ready. She knew that any misstep could end in annihilation, not just for her, but for the apex itself. And yet, the being remained calm, deliberate, patient. A predator watching something fragile and intriguing. Then, the apex made a motion that froze her blood. It raised an arm, not in attack but as a shield. Its massive presence expanded outward, creating a barrier of energy and light between her ship and the approaching fleet. The ship slowed, sensing the immense force, unsure how to proceed. Elara's heart pounded with relief and awe. The apex was protecting her, or at least asserting its will. Her mind raced. Could she communicate? Could she convince the fleet to retreat before disaster struck? Every second mattered. Every decision was critical. And yet, for a brief moment, she felt an almost human connection to this ancient being. Despite the vast difference in size, power, and knowledge, she realized they shared a moment of understanding. A soft, almost imperceptible vibration ran through her ship again. The apex's message, or its intention, was clear. Trust is fragile, and the unknown can be dangerous, but understanding is possible. Elara inhaled sharply, preparing for what would come next. She had made contact, survived the first test, but the real challenge had only just begun. The fleet was still approaching, and the apex was not human, not bound by human understanding. Its next move could change everything. The void was silent again, except for the hum of the apex and the distant, threatening pulse of the approaching fleet. Elara gripped the controls tighter, her mind racing with possibilities, calculations, and hope. She knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same after tonight. And then, without warning, the apex warrior extended its glowing form toward her once more, larger, more imposing, as if to say, "This is only the beginning." Elara's breath caught in her throat. The apex warrior loomed larger than ever, its massive form stretching across the starfield. Every instinct screamed at her to run, yet she stayed rooted, her hands gripping the controls of the Orion's edge. She could feel the immense energy radiating from the being, a force that could obliterate her ship in an instant, but it didn't. Instead, it lingered watching, as if waiting for her next move. Behind her, the distant fleet edged closer. Their weapons glimmered like shards of ice in the void. They were cautious now, sensing the immense power of the apex. Still, they would not stop. Their orders were clear. Investigate the unknown and neutralize any threat. Alara's mind raced. She had to make a choice. One wrong move and humanity might ignite a war with a force beyond comprehension. Her training kicked in. She ran scenarios in her mind, calculating distances, shield strength, energy readings, and escape routes. Nothing could outrun the apex if it chose to act. Nothing could survive if the fleet attacked. And yet, she realized the truth. She was not powerless. The apex had made a statement it could protect her. But that protection came with a silent understanding. She had to act wisely, carefully, or all would be lost. Alara turned her attention to the communications panel. She tried again, sending a simple message to the fleet, her voice calm but urgent. You are approaching a force you do not understand. Retreat immediately or face consequences beyond your comprehension. Static. Nothing. The fleet's sensors, advanced as they were, could not grasp the apex's presence. Only the faintest readings suggested a massive anomaly, and their fear had yet to surface. They still advanced. The apex shifted its glowing form again. Its movements were slow but deliberate, like a giant predator observing a fragile creature. Alara sensed intention. She could not hear words, yet she felt thought, purpose, and judgment. The apex seemed to study her, not just as a human, but as a representative of her species. Her mind raced. What did it want? Protection, communication, or a decision? A choice she had yet to understand? Then, the apex extended its energy outward in a sweeping motion, a shield of light expanding across the void. It enveloped her ship, creating a barrier between her and the fleet. The human ships hesitated, scanning, recalculating. The presence was undeniable now. Even the most hardened commanders could sense the magnitude of power before them. Alara realized the gravity of her position. She could either retreat, attempt to communicate further, or risk showing aggression. Every option carried danger. But deep inside, she felt something guiding her. The apex had given her a chance. It had chosen to observe, not destroy, and that meant the choice was now hers. Her fingers hovered over the controls. She decided. We come in peace, she said aloud, more to herself than the fleet. We seek understanding. She activated the ship's long-range lights, a signal of goodwill, and slowly moved forward, toward the apex. The warrior shifted, almost imperceptibly, responding to her courage. It did not attack. Instead, it observed. The hum it emitted changed, softer now, more melodic, like a conversation without words. Alara felt a strange warmth spreading through her chest. Somehow, the apex understood her intent. Somehow, it knew she would not harm it or herself. Behind her, the fleet edged even closer. And then, one of the ships fired a warning shot, a single pulse of energy that shattered a distant asteroid. The sound, or vibration, echoed through space, reaching the apex's awareness. Alara's heart pounded. She had seconds to act. The apex stirred. Its immense form expanded, a glowing wall of energy rising between her and the fleet. The pulse from the human ship collided with the shield, and the impact sent a shockwave through the void. Alara's ship trembled, alarms blaring. The apex turned its attention fully to the fleet. In that instant, Alara realized something monumental. The being did not need to destroy them. The sheer presence of the apex was enough to command respect, fear, and obedience. It was a living force of the galaxy, ancient and unrivaled. The fleet hesitated, their advance stalled. Their commanders communicated rapidly, unsure how to proceed. Alara seized the moment. She sent one final message. Leave. This is not your fight. Return to known space immediately. Silence followed. Then, slowly, the fleet began to retreat, cautiously, still scanning the stars for the anomaly they could not define. Alara exhaled, her body trembling with relief and awe. She had survived the first encounter, and she had learned a profound truth. The apex warrior was not an enemy. At least not yet. Her gaze returned to the colossal being before her. It hovered in silence, enormous and glowing, a presence that filled the void. And then, in a motion almost imperceptible, it extended a tendril of light toward her ship. A connection formed, not physical but mental, emotional. She sensed a thought: you have made your choice. Now prepare for what comes next. Alara's mind raced. The unknown stretched before her, infinite and terrifying. The apex's intentions were still a mystery, the galaxy's powers still a threat, and her mission had only begun. But for the first time she felt a strange confidence. She had faced the unimaginable and survived. And she had made a choice that would shape not just her fate, but the fate of humanity in ways she could not yet imagine. The void was silent again, but this time it was not empty. It was filled with possibility, tension, and a looming sense of destiny. Alara gripped the controls of her ship, her eyes fixed on the apex. She knew that the next step would define everything. And then the warrior moved again, slowly, deliberately, its glowing form retreating just enough to let her follow. A journey had begun. A journey into the unknown, guided by a being of power and mystery beyond comprehension. The Orion's edge floated through the uncharted expanse, following the massive, glowing form of the apex warrior. Alara's heart still raced from the encounter with the fleet, but now another feeling took hold: wonder. She had never seen anything like this. The apex's presence was like a living galaxy, immense and powerful, yet calm and deliberate. Inside the cockpit, Alara studied her instruments. Her sensors struggled to detect the apex. Its energy signature fluctuated unpredictably, almost as if it were alive in ways that no human technology could fully comprehend. She realized that trying to measure it with science alone would fail. Understanding required patience, observation, and perhaps something more intangible: intuition. A soft vibration hummed through the hull, a sound she had begun to recognize as the apex's form of communication. She focused, closing her eyes for a moment, and felt a strange connection. Thoughts, not words, passed through her mind. Images of distant galaxies, of stars being born and dying, and of ancient civilizations long forgotten. It was showing her glimpses of the universe's vast history, not to frighten, but to teach. Alara opened her eyes. You're more than a warrior," she whispered. "You're a guardian." The apex shifted slightly, a ripple of glowing energy spreading outward. She sensed approval or perhaps understanding. She realized then that the being had been observing the galaxy for eons, protecting balance, watching as species rose and fell, intervening only when necessary. Humanity was new, fragile, yet bold. That curiosity, it intrigued the apex. As they traveled together, strange anomalies appeared. Nebulae shifted unnaturally, asteroids hovered in patterns defying physics, and energy streams flickered like veins of light across space. The apex guided her through these phenomena, and she followed, knowing instinctively that it would lead her somewhere important. Suddenly, the warrior stopped near a dark rift in space, a chasm between stars that pulsed with energy. Her sensors went wild. "What is this?" she asked aloud, though she expected no answer in human words. The apex's glow intensified, and the mental connection deepened. Images flooded her mind. Ancient battles, civilizations destroyed, and hints of a hidden knowledge buried in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Alara realized the apex was showing her the stakes. The galaxy's peace was fragile. Forces far older and more powerful than humanity lurked in the shadows. The warrior was not just a being of strength. It was a keeper of secrets, a sentinel against threats that humans could not yet comprehend. Her thoughts were interrupted by movement on the sensors. A small probe or something artificial emerged from the rift. It was sleek, alien, and broadcasting a signal. The apex extended a glowing limb toward it, and the probe froze, as if sensing the immense authority of the being. Alara held her breath. This was a test, she realized, a first lesson in understanding the balance of power and the responsibilities that came with knowledge. The apex then directed the probe toward her ship. She hesitated but allowed it. As it approached, she saw it was not hostile. Small lights flickered along its surface, forming patterns. Through the mental link, she felt the apex's guidance. Observe. Learn. Decide. Alara reached out to touch the probe. The instant her hand made contact, data flowed into her mind. Not in words, but as visions, feelings, and understanding. Knowledge of the galaxy's hidden forces, ancient civilizations, and technologies beyond comprehension filled her. She gasped, overwhelmed, yet somehow she absorbed it. The apex's hum deepened, resonating through her very being. She understood then that this journey was not only about exploration. It was about responsibility. She could share this knowledge, but only carefully. Misuse could trigger wars, awaken ancient threats, or disrupt the balance the apex had maintained for millennia. Suddenly, alarms blared. Sensors detected another presence. Something vast, moving fast, cloaked in shadows. The apex's glow intensified, and Alara felt the weight of imminent danger. Whatever this was, it was not like the human fleet. This was ancient, intelligent, and possibly hostile. The apex turned toward her, and through the connection, she sensed a message. Prepare. The galaxy's secrets are not safe. Choices must be made. Alara gripped the controls tightly. She had survived fleets, faced the unknown, and connected with the legendary apex warrior. But now the stakes were higher. Ancient forces were stirring, and the knowledge she had gained was both a gift and a warning. The void around them darkened, stars bending and twisting unnaturally. The shadow approached, growing larger with every second. Alara's pulse raced, but she felt a strange calm. The apex was with her, and somehow she knew together they could face whatever was coming. But the question lingered in her mind, sharp and urgent. Could she truly handle the secrets of the galaxy, and the dangers that now hunted them? The apex's glow flared, massive and blinding, as if signaling a challenge. Alara realized that the true journey had just begun. Discovery was no longer just about exploration. It was about survival, responsibility, and choices that could change the fate of the entire galaxy. The darkness ahead pulsed with movement, a shadow stretching across the stars. Alara's heart pounded as she watched the readings on the Orion's edge. Whatever approached was immense, far larger than any human ship or fleet, and cloaked in energy that disrupted her sensors. She could feel it, not with her eyes, but in her chest, a deep vibration that resonated with the apex beside her. The apex warrior glowed brighter, its presence radiating calm authority. Alara sensed its focus sharpening, preparing for confrontation. For the first time, she understood that this being, this legendary creature, had seen threats like this before. The galaxy had long hidden dangers, and now one had come seeking them. Alara's hands shook slightly, but she steadied herself. What is it?" she whispered, more to herself than the apex. Through the mental connection, a thought emerged, ancient, deep, and grave, a force from the past. Awakened, hungry, dangerous, the shadow moved faster, revealing its form, jagged, metallic, and alive with energy that seemed to consume light itself. Alara's sensors scrambled to identify it. Nothing in human history matched it. The apex flared, extending massive limbs toward the approaching entity. The hum she had come to recognize deepened, vibrating through the ship, warning her. Prepare, adapt, survive. Alara knew there was no escape. They could not outrun this. The human fleet was gone, retreating into known space, leaving only her and the apex to face this threat. She swallowed hard and steadied her breathing. Every instinct told her to panic, but she remembered the lessons from the apex. The connection, the understanding, the calm before action. The shadow reached out, tendrils of energy probing the space around the apex, testing boundaries. The apex responded immediately, a wall of glowing energy expanding outward, colliding with the dark mass. The impact sent shockwaves across the void. Alara gripped the controls, struggling to stabilize the ship, but a strange calm washed over her. The apex was in command, and she trusted it completely. Through the connection, Images flooded her mind, memories of ancient civilizations, battles long forgotten, and the first appearances of this shadowy force. It had once nearly destroyed worlds, wiped out entire species, and left only ruins. The apex had fought it before, driven it back, and sealed it in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Now somehow it had returned. Alara felt the weight of history pressing down. She realized that this was no ordinary threat. This was a force older than humanity, older than the apex itself. If it reached the known galaxy, destruction would follow. And somehow, the responsibility to face it rested with her. Small, human, fragile, yet courageous. The apex moved closer, enveloping the ship in its glow, and for a moment, time seemed to stretch. The shadow paused, sensing the immense power of the warrior. Alara felt a surge of hope. The apex was not just powerful, it was strategic, wise, and patient. The being had fought wars humans could not imagine and had survived threats that would make entire fleets disappear. And yet, the shadow did not retreat. It lunged forward, energy crackling like lightning across the void. The apex flared, meeting it head-on. Shock waves of energy rippled outward, rocking the Orion's edge. Alara clutched the controls, her body trembling, but she also felt exhilaration. For the first time, she understood the true scale of the galaxy's dangers, and the true scale of her ally. Images surged through her mind again. Visions of lost civilizations, whispers of secrets, and warnings from the past. The apex was showing her pieces of history, lessons to guide her, and the choices she would have to make. She realized the truth. Knowledge alone was not enough. Action, courage, and decisiveness were required. She had to make a choice, and it would determine the fate of not just herself but the galaxy. The shadow struck again, and the apex countered, energy colliding in a blinding explosion. Stars bent and flickered in the chaos, but through it all, the apex maintained its focus. Alara knew then that she had a role to play. She could not fight the shadow alone, but she could assist, observe, and learn. And in the moments of connection, she began to understand. The apex had chosen her not only to survive, but to witness, to become part of the balance it protected. The battle paused, tension crackling in the void. The shadow retreated slightly, recalculating. The apex remained unmoved, a pillar of power and patience. Alara took a deep breath. She had survived fleets, made contact with a legendary being, and now faced an ancient force of destruction. The galaxy's secrets were dangerous, but she had learned the first lesson. Courage, wisdom, and understanding could shape the outcome. And then, a thought struck her. One that chilled her and thrilled her at the same time. The apex had revealed much, but the full truth, the ultimate secret, was still hidden. The shadow was only the beginning. Greater forces, older than even this battle, were stirring. And if she truly wished to survive and protect the galaxy, she would have to venture further, beyond the edges of known space, guided by the apex, into the heart of ancient mysteries. Alara gripped the controls, her resolve hardening. The shadow would return. The battles ahead would be greater, the choices more difficult. But she was ready. The journey had just begun. Alara stared at the vast expanse before her. The shadow had retreated, but its presence lingered like a cold wind across the stars. The apex warrior glowed softly beside her ship, massive and patient, guiding the Orion's edge deeper into uncharted space. Alara's heart raced with anticipation and fear. Every instinct told her that they were moving toward something monumental, something that could change everything she knew about the galaxy. This is the heart, she whispered to herself, unable to contain her awe. The stars around them twisted and shimmered unnaturally, forming patterns she had never seen. Nebulae pulsed like living things, and energy streams connected distant points in space like invisible bridges. She realized she had entered a place where the rules of the known universe no longer applied. Through the connection she had formed with the apex, she felt the history of this region. Ancient civilizations had risen here, building empires that stretched across galaxies. They had harnessed powers humans could barely imagine, Yet all had fallen to the same force that now pursued them. The apex had been the sentinel, the guardian, preserving balance even as empires collapsed and stars went dark. Alara shivered at the thought. The galaxy's secrets were vast, and she was only beginning to glimpse them. "Why me?" she asked aloud. "Why am I here?" A pulse of energy, warm and steady, washed over her. Through the apex, she understood humans were fragile but curious. They were capable of hope, courage, and wisdom. That spark, small but undeniable, was why she had been chosen to witness, to learn, and to act. The apex had tested countless species over millennia, and she had proven worthy, not through strength, but through curiosity and courage. The apex moved closer to a massive, glowing structure in space. Alara's sensors struggled to map it. Its energy readings were unlike anything she had ever encountered. It seemed alive, a city or vessel from an era older than recorded history. The architecture twisted and bent, as if built not for the physical eye, but for a mind attuned to cosmic energy. As they approached, a doorway or something like a gateway opened, shimmering with light. The apex did not hesitate. It passed through, and Alara followed, her ship gliding smoothly into the unknown. The gateway pulsed, and suddenly the Orion's edge floated in a vast chamber of stars, nebulae, and streams of energy forming a celestial pattern like the veins of a living being. Alara's breath caught. She realized this was the source, the heart of the galaxy, the place where energy, life, and knowledge converged. And she understood why the shadow had been drawn here. Whatever ancient force sought to consume or control the galaxy, it was attracted to this place, where power and knowledge flowed freely. The apex stopped in the center of the chamber. Its glow intensified, illuminating patterns in the space around them. Alara felt a flood of images and feelings. Civilizations, wars, discoveries, and warnings. And then, a single thought became clear, resonating in her mind. The shadow is not the only threat. Knowledge carries danger. Power carries temptation. Alara's fingers hovered over the controls. She knew that exploring this place would give humanity insights beyond imagination, but it could also unleash dangers beyond comprehension. She looked at the apex. It was more than a guide. It was a guardian, a teacher, and perhaps the only being capable of controlling what lay within the heart. A soft vibration pulsed through her ship, and she sensed a presence approaching. Not the shadow, but something else. A smaller figure, humanoid yet glowing faintly like the apex, appeared at the edge of the chamber. Its intentions were unclear, but Alara felt its curiosity and intelligence. Another sentinel, perhaps, or a remnant of the ancient civilizations. Her heart raced. Every step forward brought questions she could not yet answer. What was this place? Who had built it? And what would happen if the shadow returned, stronger than before? The apex extended a tendril of glowing energy toward her, guiding her. Through the connection, she understood you must choose. Observe, learn, survive. But remember, choices here echo across the galaxy. One wrong step and all could fall. Alara's gaze swept across the chamber. Stars, energy streams, ancient structures. Everything pulsed with life and danger. She felt both awe and fear, but also determination. She had come this far, faced the fleet, the apex, and the shadow. Now she had entered the heart itself. The knowledge, the power, the danger. It all waited for her. And then, without warning, a pulse of energy surged through the chamber. The shadow had returned, faster, more massive, and more aggressive than before. Alara's pulse quickened, but she steadied herself. She was ready. The apex was ready. The heart of the galaxy trembled as Predator and Guardian faced off, energy colliding in flashes of light that painted the void. Alara gripped the controls, her mind racing with the lessons of the past, the warnings of the apex, and the courage she had found within herself. She realized the truth. Survival was no longer enough. Understanding, courage, and the right choice would decide not only her fate, but the fate of the galaxy itself. The chamber of stars trembled. Alara gripped the controls of the Orion's edge, her knuckles white, as the shadow surged forward, twisting through the streams of energy like a predator sensing prey. Its form was jagged, dark, and alive, pulsing with hunger for the knowledge and power contained in the heart of the galaxy. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but she knew running was impossible. The apex warrior glowed brighter than ever, spreading massive wings of energy that collided with the shadow. The void shook with force that dwarfed anything Alara had ever experienced. Her ship was small, fragile, insignificant against these titans, yet somehow she felt connected, not just observing the battle but participating in it. A pulse of light from the apex enveloped her ship. Through the connection, she felt a voice. Not words, but thought and understanding. This is your trial. Courage. Wisdom. Balance. Only the right choices will survive. Alara swallowed hard. The trial. She realized the apex had brought her here not only as an observer but as a participant. She had learned from fleets, from shadows, from the history of the galaxy. But now, she would face the first test of her courage and judgment. The shadow struck, massive tendrils of energy lashing out, tearing through the star streams. Alara tried to maneuver, dodging the blasts while keeping her ship within the protective glow of the apex. The warrior flared, countering the shadow with immense energy waves that reshaped the very space around them. Each movement sent tremors through her mind, like she was part of the cosmic dance itself. A thought struck her. She had knowledge from the probe, lessons from the apex, but could she act fast enough to influence the outcome? Could a human, fragile and untested, make a decision that might save or doom this place? The shadow paused, recoiling from a barrier of light the apex formed. In that moment, Alara saw it, not just as a monster, but as a test, a challenge, a mirror of the dangers the galaxy had faced for eons. She realized what she must do. She had to act, guided by intuition, courage, and the lessons the apex had shown her. She reached toward the controls and activated a sequence she had improvised from the probe's knowledge. Streams of energy around the chamber shifted in response. The shadow hissed and recoiled, unable to comprehend the changes. Alara felt a surge of confidence. She was influencing the battle, not with weapons, but with understanding, insight, and connection. The apex flared again, its glow intensifying, amplifying her actions. Together, they formed a counterbalance to the shadow's chaos. The void seemed to hold its breath. Energy swirled like a storm, the chamber bending under the force of ancient powers. Suddenly, a spike of insight hit her. The shadow was not merely aggressive. It was reactive. It tested for weakness, sought to exploit hesitation. And she had none. Steadying her mind, she projected clarity and purpose into the connection with the apex. We will survive. We will protect the heart. The shadow lashed one final time, massive and furious. Alara braced herself, holding her sequence steady. The apex met the attack head-on. Light and shadow collided, energy roaring across the chamber, shaking stars and warping reality. Then, in a blinding flash, the shadow shattered, not destroyed, but repelled, forced back into the dark rift from which it had emerged. Alara slumped in her seat, gasping for breath. Her heart raced, but relief and triumph surged through her. She had passed the first trial, not alone but together with the apex. She understood now that this was more than survival. It was learning to act, think, and choose with wisdom, courage, and balance. The apex lowered its glow slightly, a sign of calm after the storm. Alara felt pride and gratitude. She had faced an ancient force, played a role in defending the heart of the galaxy, and emerged stronger. And yet, through the connection, she sensed that this was only the beginning. Trials would continue. Knowledge would come with responsibility. And greater dangers lay ahead. She looked out at the chamber. The streams of energy, the glowing structures, and the faint shimmer of the returning shadow's essence, and realized that the galaxy was alive in ways she had never imagined. Choices mattered, actions mattered, and courage, even in the smallest human, could shape the fate of entire civilizations. A gentle pulse ran through her mind from the apex. You are ready for what comes next. But remember, the heart tests all who enter. Only those who balance wisdom, courage, and humility can endure. Alara nodded, determination hardening within her. The shadow had retreated, but it would return stronger. And when it did, she would be ready, not just as a human, but as a guardian, a learner, and an ally to a being of unimaginable power. She gripped the controls. The heart of the galaxy awaited, filled with secrets, knowledge, and challenges. And she knew that every choice, every decision, every act of courage would echo across the stars. The trial was over, for now. The Orion's edge floated silently in the heart of the galaxy, surrounded by streams of glowing energy and the remnants of the shadow's assault. Alara leaned forward, eyes wide, absorbing every detail. The chamber pulsed around her, alive, as if the galaxy itself were watching. She realized that the heart was not just a place. It was a living entity, containing the knowledge, energy, and history of countless civilizations. The apex warrior glowed beside her, immense and serene. Its presence was a calming force in the chaos of the heart, and through their connection, Alara could feel the weight of its wisdom. This was power beyond comprehension, but it was also responsibility. One wrong action could unleash forces no human could control. A soft vibration ran through the ship. Alara focused and felt it, not just as sound but as a pulse of knowledge. Ancient structures nearby shifted subtly, revealing patterns she hadn't noticed before. She realized they were not random. They were messages, records, and warnings left by civilizations long extinct. The apex guided her toward them, encouraging understanding, not destruction. Alara approached one glowing structure. Her sensors recorded streams of energy, images, and symbols that defied human logic. The structure pulsed with information, and she felt the connection. Knowledge is power. Power is choice. Choose wisely. She reached out mentally, letting her thoughts flow into the structure. And in response, visions filled her mind. Cities of crystal, fleets of living energy, battles that spanned galaxies, and civilizations rising and falling. Her breath caught. The echoes of the past were vivid, almost tangible. She realized that every civilization had faced the same challenge: temptation. The heart offered immense power, but only those who used it with wisdom survived. Others had fallen, consumed by ambition or fear. A sudden ripple of energy made her start. Another presence emerged, smaller than the shadow, yet deliberate, intelligent, and probing. It moved like a scout, observing her, the apex, and the heart itself. Alara sensed curiosity, but also caution. This was a remnant of an ancient civilization, perhaps a guardian of knowledge, or a test she had yet to face. Through the mental link, the apex communicated, observe, learn, discern. Not all echoes are friendly. Not all power can be trusted. Alara studied the presence carefully. It seemed to respond to her thoughts, to her intentions. She realized that the heart tested not only strength but judgment. Every action, every decision carried consequences. She had survived the shadow, but these echoes of the past could be equally dangerous if misinterpreted or provoked. She reached out mentally, projecting calm and honesty. Slowly, the presence approached, examining her. Images of long-lost worlds and civilizations flickered before her eyes, warnings, lessons, and fragments of history. The being seemed to measure her, testing whether she was worthy of accessing deeper secrets. Suddenly, a flash of insight struck her. The heart was alive not just in energy, but in consciousness. It responded to thought, emotion, and intent. Power without wisdom could awaken destruction. Knowledge alone was not enough. One had to act with clarity, courage, and humility. Alara nodded, determination firming in her chest. She was ready to learn, to face whatever trials awaited, and to make the right choices. The apex flared beside her, amplifying her resolve, a partner in the dance of wisdom and power. A distant tremor shook the chamber. The shadow had returned, stronger and faster, drawn by the heart's energy. But Alara no longer felt paralyzed. She had survived the first trial, learned to act with judgment, and understood that courage was as important as knowledge. The apex extended a tendril of light toward her. She felt it not as guidance, but as trust. Together they would confront the shadow again. Together they would protect the heart. Alara gripped the controls, her mind racing with the lessons of the past and the knowledge of what lay ahead. The heart of the galaxy was alive, powerful, and full of secrets. Every step she took, every decision she made would echo across time and space. And as the shadow surged forward, she felt ready, not just to survive, but to face the echoes of power and shape the destiny of the galaxy.